Welcome back, everyone, to the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. This is your United show. This is Devil's Advocate, and today I'm here to talk all things Manchester United, all the latest news, transfer news, and just all the stuff that's going on. We're going to be talking about the European Championships as well here this afternoon. We're talking about obviously the latest things, what's after happening with Luke Shaw and Jose Mourinho. I'll also be answering questions I did receive on Twitter as well. And so as always, lads, look, smash a like in the video and do subscribe to the channel. It does go a long way in terms of helping us grow and prosper. So do absolutely do that there here this afternoon. And look, drop your comments in below in terms of the current topics that we will be talking about here this afternoon. So look, I suppose the first thing I'd like to talk about here today, before I obviously get to the questions and stuff like that, I'm going to get to that kind of towards the latter stages of the show. First thing I'd like to talk about is obviously the European Championships in terms of Manchester United players on international duty. Look, if you have been living under the rock the last 2 or 3 weeks, the Euros have been taking place all over Europe at the moment. Great festival of football. Great to see football go on every day, more or less, and these last couple of weeks, obviously with Man United not being on our television screens over the last couple of weeks, and obviously not been able to travel over as well. But kind of, I suppose, look, the first thing I'd like to talk about is obviously Euros watch. Look, the 2 games last night were unbelievable. There was the 2-3 all draws. William Bryan from our own weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast, the first 3-3 call a second 3-3. For the life of him, didn't do a bet on it though, so do a shout out to William there on that one. But yeah, look, the first thing I'd like to talk about obviously is Paul Pogba. Last night, unbelievable performance in a France shirt last night. Scored a beautiful goal, and look, I think when you look at Pogba, we all know his performances of France are more or less, though he drops in nearly 8-9 out of 10, most games when he plays for France. But to see the way he kind of took the game by the scruff of the neck last night was very good, very, very kind of interesting to see. There was a lot of talk, obviously, going into this European Championships. How would he perform? I think when you look at his current stature in a Man United shirt, he's very good. And like when you look, for me, going into this Euros, obviously he's going into his last year of his contract. Me personally, I'm a pessimist sometimes in terms of, I always like to think of everything in a very positive light. And for me, I was thinking about 2 things going into this Euros. Number one, the first thing I was thinking of, he's obviously going to be in the shop window now. I think you look at certain things like going into his last year of his deal. You look at, obviously, rival clubs wanting to strengthen their midfields. Pogba playing well benefits himself, benefits United. It benefits kind of a lot of people, in case anyone who wants to go in and recruit him. But to see his performances in this European Championships has been breathtaking, if that's a word I can use. Look, we all know his quality. I think when you look at him in a Man United shirt, he does produce a lot of things in the United shirt what he produced for France. But it's highlighted more because Pogba has more quality around him in a France shirt, if that makes sense. Look, that's not disparaging my football club in any way. We have a lot of quality players at our football club too. It's just obviously Griezmann's, Mbappe's. I know Mbappe didn't play well last night, but the players like that, Kante's, obviously you look at the depth of their back four as well, like Varane, Pavard, Kimpembe, Digne, Hernandez, like very good players around them. So, like, look, he's obviously going to prosper probably that bit more, France, because his teammates probably slightly higher level to what his teammates at Man United are. But nonetheless, I think I felt really kind of sad for Pogba last night. Now, personally, selfishly, I'll say, kind of happy France went out because obviously Pogba comes back, more fit, fresh mind. He'll come to Man United, kind of two weeks extra rest the man is going to get. But the other part of me is like, you look at his performances in Euros, the way he's been kind of dragging France through games. He's been that kind of talismanic figure for France in these last couple of games. He's been a superstar. He's been a player of the tournament for me so far. And I know I'm going to kind of get to other Man United players' performances in Euros later on. But for me, Pogba's been like the measuring stick in this tournament. He's been probably the best player in this tournament. And when you look at the performance last night. Now you can talk about the third goal. Look, yes, he got tackled, did lose the ball, but without Pogba's goal, France don't go to extra time and penalties. So though it's glass half empty, glass half full situation, you look at the defendant, France's defending for that goal. Kimpembe wasn't great. Kante probably could have pressed a bit further when Pogba lost the ball. You look at France's injury problems at the back, like losing their 2 first team left backs, having to go to a back 3. But yeah, like it's glass half full, glass half empty situation. But nonetheless, look, very happy the way he played in the Euros. I think, look, he could be in the shop window. But I think this is where it's down to us to kind of, I suppose, first of all, be ambitious, show ambition, show we have a plan to kind of bring quality around them, which I will talk about later in terms of transfers and future plans and kind of where I think we can go from here. Because the fact of the matter is, like, Varane, the player who are massively linked with, is now out with the Euros. So that's a deal now we can definitely progress. Obviously, England, if they lose tonight, which I'm not going to say if I hope that happens or not, because a couple of English people in the comments and a lot of English people on my channel, so I'm not going to say who I want to win, who I want to win that game later on. But yeah, look, I think the transfer business you're going to see with Man United and just other clubs in general, it's going to progress and proceed a bit more quicker because simply the Euros will be coming to an end and pre-season happens and you'll see a lot more big moves happening. It's going to come to a couple of comments here. Rach is in the house as always, says, all right, Kino, hope you're well, Rach. I hope you're not absolutely shitting yourself for the game later on. Shane says, give Pogba a blank check. You all know Shane Dowley stands Paul Pogba, so not shocked at that comment. Yeah, Rach agrees also that we need to keep Paul Pogba. I agree. I think he's a player who can be integral. If we get the players we're linked to it, Pogba is going to be a very key part of our success, the hopeful success next season. So yeah, 100%. Shane said, for sure I'm nervous because with France going out early, he has now more time to find a new club if he wants to force a move. He can look at it in that way, I suppose. 100%. Shane says, always think it's harsh to blame a player for losing the ball in the build up to a goal when it's 50, 60 yards from goal. Kimpembe showed his ass. Yeah, he wasn't great for that goal. Mark's also in the house. Mark says, Kino, love it. Absolutely love it. Dean Fury is also in the comments, says, yes, Keane, hope you're well. Hope you're well, Dino. Hope all is well. I hope you're getting them beers in for the England match later on. And also Rachel says she doesn't see anyone who could be able to afford him this year. This is the thing, and this is where I would harp it back to, is with a year left in this deal, can United really demand 100 million for him or 80 million for him? That's the sticking point, I think. Like, I think he's worth that. He's worth 80 to 100, in my opinion. Rival fans might say I'm absolutely off my head, but I think you look at Pogba, like, he best centre midfielder in the world, like in terms of progressive midfielder, in terms of creating chances, in terms of bringing the ball forward. I don't think there's any better midfield player in the world to do them things, like from shooting from long range. Now, Bruno's obviously there up there too. You have De Bruyne, you have all these midfielders, but when you look at his profile of player, he's definitely in the echelon of 80 to 100 million. Like, if Kai Havertz is going for 90 million, why can't Paul Pogba be going for 80 to 100? At the moment, Paul Pogba's in his prime, and he's more experienced than Havertz. Like, if, for example, West Ham are looking for 100 million for Declan Rice, if Pogba wasn't in his last year of his deal, we'd be demanding even more for that for Paul Pogba. I think the problem is he's in the last year of his deal. We're kind of in a sticky situation with Pogba because the thing about it is I'm always Manchester United first and foremost, and I always will be. But here's the thing, I think this is where we're in a sticky situation. He's in his last year of his deal. He can easily now just run down his contract and go for free next summer. And even worse than that, he can, like, if let's say we don't agree a new deal with Pogba between now and January. In January, he's going to be free to negotiate with overseas teams, and we'll be able to do nothing about it. So I think this is where Man United, I think, when the Euros is over now, Pogba's he's gone now, the Euros. So I think for us, for me, I think I know we're kind of slow at negotiating. I think that's evident with the Sancho deal and other things that's happened in the past. But I think we definitely need to try and nail him down to a contract. But I think the other side of it is I think we need to show Paul Pogba ambition, because you see what he can do when he has quality around him in certain areas of the pitch, i.e. defensive midfield and centre-back. They're two positions Man United want to strengthen this summer. So I think you look at it and say, we need to show ambition. We need to get the Sanchos, the Varanes, and maybe a defensive midfielder in. Even if you can't get the DM in, at least get Sancho and Varane in. And that strengthens our spine that bit more. I think then he might stay. But I think it's just, again, it's a case of we need to show ambition from our side, but also, he has to be willing to stay. Because, look, one thing I will say is, if he makes it blatantly obvious he doesn't want to stay, then look, there's nothing we can do about it, but we can't force him to. And I think that's a situation where we're at. I think ambition needs to be showed, but also from our point of view, we do need to kind of try force his hand, but not do it in a way where, look, we're not refusing to sell. I think we need to kind of force his hand in a way that, let's get the players in, let's really challenge for the league, because that's where we want to be. We finished third, we finished second. The only way is up for me, and I think that's where the demand from the United fans will be, is let's grow, let's get that bit better. Because, look, under Solskjaer, people can say what they want about him. There's a lot of people out there, look, I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of people out there, like Ollie could get world peace and they'd still want him to be out. We all know who they are. They're very irrelevant and foul amount of people. But I think you look at it and say, Ollie's done a reasonably good job from when you picked his team up from Jose Mourinho. Like, when he left, we were in dire straits, and his first 2 full seasons, he's got third and second. He's finished ahead of the current European champions 2 years running. Man isn't doing a bad job. I think you look at it and say, yes, there's, in the cup competition, certainly, like, yes, there were certain moments in games we could have done better. In-game management could have been better in some games. But for the large part, if people think now that now is not the time to back the manager, this is the most crucial time to back the manager, because you've gotten third and second in two seasons, right? And you look at the 2 summer transfer windows he got. In a lot of them we didn't get a lot of first team targets in them transfer windows, bar the exception of Maguire and Bruno Fernandes. You look at the rest of the signings Ollie's actually got. He's got tier 2, tier 3 kind of signings in terms of, choices. Like, so I think now is the time to most definitely back the manager and most definitely get behind him. I think, and look, as a fan base, look, the real Man United fans, the match-going Man United fans, the reasonable people will back him. So I think the football club need to be doing that too, because I think he deserves it. Like, when you look at last season, especially when you look at the way the transfer window unfolded last year, I think Ollie really needs to be given significant backing this summer, because even that you look at the fixture list, we have a very favourable fixture list up until October. So if he gets the right players in and he gets a pre-season under him, we can definitely push forward and gather momentum before, obviously, the big run of games we're going to have coming into October, November, because there's a very tough period then, and obviously March, April, later on in the season. So, look, for me, it's definitely a case of backing Ollie, supporting Ollie, and most importantly, supporting the football club, because I think this football club is always built on the unison and success, but we need to be ambitious and be Man United. But we all know kind of sometimes the problem with that is the people upstairs prevent that from happening, from progressing to the next level. Like any Man United manager post Alex Ferguson, anytime they finish top 4, they've never been given the ceiling to push on. Whereas Ollie's done it 2 seasons in a row without significant backing. And people can talk about Harry Maguire 80 million, Bruno Fernandes 47 million. Look at the net spend of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer during his time. Like, we've sold Lukaku. That's the only reason why Maguire came in. We still haven't been given all that money either. So, like, I think when you look at all these time as a United manager, yes, there's been stages where certain competitions we could have done better. But if you look domestically over a 38-game season, twice in a row, he's done that, and he's been consistent enough in the league to progress, and without significant backing. So I think you have to say this is the most crucial transfer window post Sir Alex. For me, I really believe this is the most crucial, because we're talking about progress. Progress has most definitely been made, but now this is the thing: the club can't stall with that progress now. Like, we've reached the final. Now, look, we're one missed penalty away from a trophy. That was probably one of the most craziest penalty shootouts I ever seen in my life. Went down to the goalkeeper. It's like, that was just luck. That was a pot luck. Now, when you look at United and Villarreal's team, probably should have never got to the penalty shootout, but in a final, in a one-off game, the games aren't won on paper. But other than that, like, I think you look at it and say, you have to give him back in, you have to support him, and the club themselves have to push on and kind of, make further progress in the season to upcoming. Just had to take a sip of water, because the only thing about it is, when you're doing a show on your own, you're talking away, you do have to gather your breath. But the next thing I'd like to talk about is Jadon Sancho, because we're talking about transfers and we're talking about significant backing. In the last couple of days, we've all seen that Jadon Sancho to Manchester United is more or less, it's done. Like, it's done. Like, Rachel has 21, 22. Like, Jadon Sancho is more or less done at this stage. The fee's been agreed. It's just the structure of the deal is the only kind of sticking point in terms of over how much period we're going to pay the fee, 90 million euros. I think Jan Fortoff just had a tweet up a couple of minutes ago with regards to Jadon Sancho. So it was actually 1 hour ago. So I'll read out Jan Fortoff's tweet. It says, reports today that obviously at present, that Dortmund and Man United have agreed the fee for Jadon Sancho. Been told almost agreed are a more accurate definition of the negotiations. 90 million euros likely to be agreed fee. I expect the announcement will just be around the corner. So yeah, like, look, I think Sancho, what Jan's basically saying there is, when England get knocked out of the Euros, that's when the announcement will be made. I think, look, England, Germany, the Sancho is not going to be announced on that day. Gareth Southgate will not allow that to be done on the England side. So for medicals and all that crack to be done, and Sancho having to get his pictures taken and all that type of stuff, I don't think that'll happen today. I'm telling you now, I'm just saying this now to everybody. If England get knocked out tonight, Rachel, I'm sorry for saying this, Sancho will be announced tomorrow, I'd say, or even the day after. I think that's what could most definitely happen. I think you look at this deal again. Like, for me, I've been on the Sancho train for the last 2 years in terms of when we've been linked with him. Very good young English player, and again, it's probably the first, when you look at the right wing position for Man United. When Cristiano left the club, we signed Antonio Valencia. I think for the large part, for his first couple of years, done a very, reasonable job on the right wing, and was a very good, contributor, to this football club. I think you have to say, since then, have we signed a natural right winger since Cristiano left? You can say Di Maria, but he didn't work out. Like, this is probably the only time post Sir Alex we're getting probably a world-class right winger. And, well, I won't, that phrase gets thrown around. We have a player who has the potential to be world-class. And I think Jadon Sancho can definitely raise our front three to a whole new level. I think him and Marcus Rashford will elevate, will link up well. I think Mason Greenwood learning off Cavani still is definitely, an avenue that we'll go down. Look, we've Martial coming back. Like, we've seen pictures of Martial on social media in the last couple of days. He looks like he's in shape. He looks like he's ready to go. Like, he's going to be motivated looking at that. Like, when you think about it, when you look at that France squad, Martial should have been, like, if he didn't pick up that injury towards the latter stages last year, I believe he would have been in that France squad. Like, Marcus Thuram came on last night from Mönchengladbach. Martial's a better player than him. A lot better player. Martial was actually starting to pick up a bit of form. Like, remember his performance against Manchester City at the Etihad? He was starting to pick up a bit of form coming into the latter stage of the season. Unfortunately, he got injured on international duty when he actually was playing well for France as well. Like, I think he's another player who can definitely provide us with depth and challenge Rashford for that left-hand side position done next season. Look, he's played well as a striker, but I think the trajectory United are going down is we're building Greenwood to kind of go into that number 9 role. Hence why people are saying he's learning off Cavani. We're doing this, we're doing that. So, like, I think you look at it and say Martial could be a player we can definitely hopefully challenge Rashford. Because remember, like, if people in the comments can remember the 17-18 season before we signed Alexis Sanchez and we had Rashford and Martial on that left-hand side before Christmas that year. When them two were competing for that role, they were elevating each other's game and they were both playing very well and scoring goals. I think Ollie could get that out of the two of them again. You look at Martial's, let's take last season out of the equation for the second, because last season he had injuries. He was in and out of the team, out of form. But you look previous to that, Martial has best spell at Man United under Solskjaer. So people, like, I see a lot of people on social media say, Martial, Ollie's not getting the most out of Martial. Ollie got the most out of Martial. Martial had his best season under Solskjaer. So again, this comes back to people and agendas and actually not going to Specsavers. Like, Martial had his best season under our current manager, 25 goals in one season. So he can definitely reach them levels. It's just he needs to stay fit, get a run of games, and then you see the performances lift up. So, look, I think Martial's definitely a player who can help Rashford. And, like, even squad management and rotation, he's definitely a player who can help us get better and really go there. But for me, I'd rather see him next season fight Rashford for the left-hand side than be third choice striker. Because I think in the pecking order in terms of striking role, that's where he is. I think it's Cavani, Greenwood, Martial. I think Greenwood's a better finisher. Like, in my opinion, Greenwood's probably the best finisher at our football club. But obviously, like, he's still young. There's still other parts of his game he needs to work on. Probably needs to get stronger, probably from an upper body point of view. But I think for me, I think he's definitely a player. Like, you look at Martial, he's definitely a player. I think this season we give him a chance. I'm willing to be reasonable enough to say, look, give him a chance this season. And look, if after this doesn't deliver, then he's still at a reasonable age where we can part ways. I think, look, and we definitely can get a decent fee for him. But I think people talk about squad depth, and like this season, I think especially Martial's been in and out of the team. And like when Rashford gets injured, no disrespect to Daniel James, I think Daniel James can do a job in certain games against certain teams, against certain setups. But the drop off from Rashford to Daniel James is very big. Whereas if Rashford's out, and let's say, like, because the thing about it is people tend to forget Rashford's getting surgery, potentially getting surgery after the Euros. The decision has to be made after the Euros. Martial could be a very crucial player coming into the first month or two in the season if Rashford decides to go get that surgery. I'd much prefer Martial on the left of Daniel James in most games. Obviously, when you play against a team that plays a really high line and you can exploit him in behind with pace, then maybe Daniel James is that option. But, I think you look at and say, you give Martial time. I think now is not the time to sell him. I think maybe next summer you have that discussion. But I think you have to kind of give him that chance, that opportunity this season, especially when we're building. Like the last thing we need to do, like, is get rid of him. And then on the left hand side, you have inexperienced options like James and Short Here, which, like, I really like Short Here, but if you're really saying it, probably needs another year in the 23s for me. I think Short Here probably needs one more season in the 23s before he can really make that jump. And people can talk about Diallo. This is the reason why I haven't even mentioned him. He can play on the right. He can be Sancho's backup when we're rotating, because Greenwood's going to be competing with Cavani for number 9. That's the way I personally would kind of deal with that situation. I think Daniel James, like, you keep him probably in and around the squad. If you're not loaning him, keep him in and around there, because there is certain games he's useful in. Should he start week in, week out? Probably not, but he's a useful player for certain times. Like, we've seen with Wales what he can offer. Like, he can offer things. But then again, like, look, I think, again, each their own. Everyone has their own opinion. Going to come to another couple of comments here. Shane says, when we have the league wrapped up by Christmas, we can still say 21 and 21. Let's go. Oh my God. Shane's nuts, lads. I love it. Rach is in agreement, says, yes, Shane. Reese is also in the house. I think they're Germany flags, judging by the letters, but the emojis won't pop up in StreamYard. Sorry about that, Reese. Then Reese says, United win the league next year and England losing tonight would make it all sweeter. Well, yeah, look. Again, I'm not getting entrenched in that debate, because being Irish, I do not have the horse in this race. We're talking about the Euros, unfortunately. Shane says, Martial, he has himself to blame for last season. I really like him, but it wasn't good enough and personally offensive to my eyeballs. Ooh, that's strong. I think yes, he's kind of responsible, but people have to remember there was a lot of it. He had a couple of injury problems as well last year, which I think can definitely contribute to it. But look, again, for me, like, give him another year. Be reasonable. I think give him another year, and then after that, if he doesn't perform, then we can get rid. Last thing I want him to go to Spurs and score goals. We all know how Steve would love that. Even though Steve slandered Martial a lot last season, I'll make that known to everyone. Shane said Bruno is a very good finisher, but I agree Mason is money. Let's go to a couple other comments. What's going on here? Shane said Keane come with all the facts this afternoon, a connoisseur of the beautiful game. I like to think I'm very well versed in my opinions. Sometimes they can be dodgy, but I always like to be reasonable. Reese said he believes his last chance. Yeah, look, that's what it is for me too. Again, like, I never I'm not like certain people out there. Some jellyfishes out there. That's the best word I can use, because we all know who jellyfish is. Hint, hint, nod, nod. Who lambasts players and abuses players, but there's a lot of players out there who, for me, are at the football club who can reach the next level and who can contribute to this team. And for me, I think, look, he's definitely a player who can definitely help us next year. And it's just by utilising him next season in the right positions and rotating the team, it's going to be, it's definitely an opportunity. Rachel has a comment here, just missed it there. Rachel has asked Keane, make me mod so I can block Reese. I don't know if I can do that, because then Reese will murder me then. But yeah, just again, it's very interesting to see kind of what happens. What happens next season in terms of our squad, in terms of other players, because Jesse Lingard's also been rumoured now with a 3-year deal, which, look, I think for me could be another spanner thrown into the works. Could be another spanner thrown into the works if he does get that new contract. Does he contribute? What does that mean for Donny van de Beek? Or, what does that mean for Diallo? Players like that. But look, it'd be interesting to see kind of what escalates kind of in these next couple of weeks, because I think, look, I think what we're all seeing in the transfer window, especially at the minute, is a lot of big deals aren't being done. Like the free transfers, the Pogba, Wijnaldum, Kanate was done before the transfer window, but like again, he wasn't in an international tournament. So like when you really think about it, you see the big deals. Like once you see the Euros ending, Romano's here we goes for the big transfers. David Ornstein. You're going to see a lot more stories pick up steam in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks as a Man United fan, but also for all football fans. Because look, again, this YouTube channel is a sports podcast. We do have a lot of different sports, lot of fans from different teams. Again, we're very open. We like to talk about things in a very reasonable manner. And yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of get their thoughts on Talk the League podcast later on. I think that is live tomorrow night. Don't quote me, because obviously Euros are on. We always like to make sure everyone can watch their games rather than watch us. So I'll let you know when that's live in due course. But yeah, I'm just going to come to another topic here before I come to the questions, because the questions I want to leave for kind of the end. We all seen Jose Mourinho last week as lambasting Luke Shaw in the media and Talk Sport. Jose Mourinho is finished when he's working for a very low-rated radio station, very low-rated sports trying to think of the word, company or whatever it is in terms of the media. Jose Mourinho went from being a pundit on Sky Sports to Tottenham manager, now to working on Talk Sport. No disrespect to Tottenham, obviously, because they're a big club in the Premier League, but he was on the flagship sports channel in England to one of the lower tier kind of sports outlets in England. You look at, it's like comparing WWE to WCW if anyone's a wrestling fan. That's literally what it is. To see his fall from grace, it's been nothing short of astounding, really. You look at it, he has a weird stalkerish obsession with Luke Shaw. I think it's, in many ways, it's just, it boggles the mind. Like, he's talking about Luke Shaw, consistently, downplaying Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw's after having the best season of his career. I think Mourinho was it's been open that Mourinho was very hard on Luke Shaw. During his time at United, and look, the proof is in the pudding. He was playing Ashley Young and Darmian as the left back ahead of him, which should never have been the case. Luke Shaw came back from a traumatic leg break injury. I think his leg had to be amputated and all that type of stuff. And like, his recovery was a long but tough one. And you come back to have probably one of the worst man managers in the league. We all know his CV. Like, Mourinho's a very good CV manager, and I think he's a very, like, if you go on Wikipedia and you look up Jose Mourinho, you look at his list of honours as a manager and players he's worked with, you would say, yes, Jose Mourinho is a fantastic manager. I'd love him at his football club. You look at Jose Mourinho from 2014 onwards. No, let's not say, actually, that's unfair because he won the league that year. No, sorry, the year after. 2015 onwards, after winning that league with Chelsea, he's been finished. He's been a relic in this game. He really has. And Jose Mourinho, I think at this moment in time, he's not relevant in today's game. He's yesterday's news. And the proof is in the pudding that he got sacked from Spurs, working with Talk Sport now, and now he's going to Roma, who were like, what, the seventh best team in Italy last year. That shows his fall from grace. Like, you look at Mourinho, to still have this obsession with Luke Shaw 3 years after he's after getting sacked from Man United. It just shows he's living in the past. Like, where I kind of stop at this Luke Shaw Mourinho thing, if Jose Mourinho really wants to hold this agenda, this was say to Jose Mourinho, who had like more or less nearly a man of the match performance against you in your last ever game at home as Tottenham boss, Luke Shaw. Another man you criticised in the media is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Who was your first and last defeat as Tottenham boss? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Manchester United. I think Manchester United have dented your ego, Jose, and I think you really have to kind of evaluate your kind of career at the moment, and you really have to kind of say to yourself, what have I done wrong? Rather than blame anybody else, because that's what he seems to be doing. He seems to be blaming a lot of people for things going wrong in the last kind of 5-6 years of his career. But really, he has to look at himself. His man management skills are very poor. Like, you look at his time at Chelsea, he fell out with a lot of players. We all know the incident that happened with their physio as well. That was a very bad incident. You look at his time at United, he fell out with Pogba, fell out with Rashford. You look at, like, he benched players for, like, to kind of justify his agendas against these players. Players who, arguably, when you look at the Newcastle game in October 2018, kept him his job. Mourinho's style of management isn't relevant in today's game. There's a lot more progressive managers than Jose Mourinho out there. Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, Brendan Rodgers. Do I even say, even at this moment, Ollie's probably a more progressive manager, just because his players run, like, people can talk about Ollie tactically, but one thing I will say is Ollie's a great man manager that his players will run through brick walls for him. So you look at other players like Julian Nagelsmann, other managers like that, like Pochettino. I could name 10 managers who are more relevant in today's game than Jose Mourinho. And Luke Shaw, like, since Jose Mourinho's left as well, I think this is where the proof was really in the pudding that, like, Mourinho was wrong in the Luke Shaw debate. Luke Shaw got Player of the Year and was one of Ollie's best players when Ollie first came in. And this year, arguably, like, you can talk about Bruno Fernandes's goals and assists, and he's been probably a very integral player for United. But arguably, Luke Shaw is United's best player this season. Luke Shaw is England's starting left back in the Euros. Luke Shaw, when he was under Jose Mourinho, his England career looked over. His England career looked like it was dead and buried. But under Solskjaer, he's been managed to a degree that he can get, number one, get himself back in shape, number two, get a run in games, and number three, get form. And all them three things were fulfilled under this current management. And he's starting to show why we paid 30 million for him in the summer of 2014. So I think you have to say, Jose Mourinho needs to leave this go. He needs to stop mulling over his time at Man United, because that's what he's doing. Like, even there 2 weeks ago, he was in I believe it was 2 weeks ago, don't quote me, maybe even 3, where he's obsessing over Solskjaer, saying, I came second and won the Europa League, but United come second in its progress. Jose Mourinho, like, I think he's even forgetting that when he won the Europa League, he finished 6th and he had like 12 draws. And many of them were 0-0s as well. I think he really needs to rethink about how he can change. You know, he's a stubborn man. He probably will never change. But he needs to leave this Luke Shaw thing alone. He needs to leave it alone. Luke Shaw's clearly moved on. Manchester United as a football club, we've moved on. Jose Mourinho now needs to move on. I think he's making himself look like a bitter ex. That's literally what he looks like. And he's consistently doing it. What he needs to think about now is try to rebuild his reputation as a first-class manager. That's what he needs to do. He needs to think about his plans for Roma and Serie A and try to break back into the top 4 in Italy. Because that's where Roma really should be. He needs to be thinking about that, not talking about what he done at Man United 3-4 years ago. He needs to kind of wake up, smell the coffee. He's slowly, but not even slowly, he's quickly turned into yesterday's news. And he's losing a lot of respect in the football world. Like, fair enough, you won all these trophies years ago, but like, what has he done in 5-6 years? Like, he's not a progressive manager. Like, none of the teams in the top 6 in the Premier League will touch him. I'll even go to the extent that I know Arsenal haven't been great in the last couple of years. Arsenal wouldn't touch him. Arsenal would not go near Jose Mourinho. I know Arteta he has his flaws. Arsenal wouldn't go near him. Spurs went near him because Daniel Levy's had this obsession with him and thought, why, he brought him in to try and win a trophy because Tottenham haven't won a trophy since 2008. But Mourinho really needs to kind of evaluate and see what he can do to change, because he hasn't been at the top level in a long time. And you keep referring to a player that you mismanaged a couple of years ago who's clearly got better since you've left the football club. You really need to think about what you've done wrong and try and make yourself better. Because the more you talk about Luke Shaw and the more you talk about what he done at a football club and what he kind of, in terms of like what he done wrong. Like you more or less bullied Luke Shaw in his time at Man United after coming back from a traumatic leg break that arguably could have ended his career, but we've seen he came back. So look, I think that's my thoughts on it. I think he needs to stop talking about Luke Shaw. He just needs to cop on and he needs to move on. That's simply what he needs to do. It's just move on. Because us as a club, we've moved on. Shaw's moved on. Fans are moving on. You just have to stop being like a bitter ex. That's what he is at the moment. Reese says, Jose needs to chat with Dr. Phil. Yeah. Prime, welcome Prime to the chat. He says, what's this in reference to? This, what I'm saying about Mourinho is in reference to his comments about Luke Shaw. Obviously he's still coming out criticising him 3 years later after leaving the football club, when Luke Shaw has arguably been our best player in the last 2-3 seasons since he's been here, since Ollie's been here. So, that's what I'm referring Mourinho to in terms of his current management and his management style in the last couple of years. Katie's also in the house. She says, brilliant, all the facts, and also says hello to everyone in the chat as well. But look, for me, kind of moving on from the Shaw Mourinho public spat, going to come to another couple of things just with relation to United, and in terms of where we can go from here, because I've received a couple of viewers' questions with regards to today's show. So I'm just going to pick a couple of these up now and we'll see what these questions are. So first of all, Aston, who is the Aston Villa fan, says, are United title challengers if they get a centre-back and a centre defensive midfielder? That's a tough one, because I think you look at City, if they get... Think about this, if City get Keane and Grealish, we can be third or second in the league, but if City get Grealish and Keane, I think they could pull away again. But I think we'll definitely be competing with the likes of Chelsea and maybe push City to a maybe after Christmas. But yeah, I'd say maybe if we get the right players, if we get best in class in positions like Varane and Declan Rice, then maybe we can challenge. But then it depends on who recruits around us. Like if we recruit, let's say Sancho, Rice, Varane, but then Chelsea get Haaland, and then City get, if they get Haaland and they get, let's say, who's another player they're linked with? I think they're linked with Hakimi. Let's say if they got him or they got someone, then maybe. But I think you just have to say, if we get them players, we can definitely build on last season, and definitely get a trophy. Victoria's Secret says, assuming we sign Sancho and a new centre back, what is our best starting 11? I think Ollie still doesn't know his best starting 11. Let's say if we get, okay, let's see. I'd say Henderson in goal. I still believe in my heart and hearts Henderson should be number one. Wan-Bissaka right back for me. Assuming we get Varane, I would say Varane beside Maguire. Luke Shaw obviously left back. Since you only asked the question of centre back and Sancho, since you didn't mention a defensive midfielder, let's say hypothetically we don't get that, I would say McTominay, Pogba. That's if we don't sign a defensive midfielder. Then obviously Sancho on the right, Bruno on the 10, Rashford on the left, and Cavani is a striker. I think that's probably our strongest. I think that's probably the strongest kind of 11, providing we don't sign a DM. If we sign a DM, then someone beside Pogba in that midfield could be devastating. But I think there is a couple of players who can definitely strengthen this first team. I'm just going to, because I got two sets of questions, one on my personal page, one on my proper page. So I'm just getting both sets of questions, guys. It's hard when you have two accounts on your phone, Twitter. It's all over the shop. I'm just going to get the rest of the questions here now. Where are we? Here we go. So, yeah, good question from Shane. He says, what United players have had the best and worst Euros so far? Look, I'll start at kind of worst first. Look, I think Bruno, look, for me, he's probably one of my favourite players at the football club. But when you look at the bar he's after setting for himself compared to where, compared to where he plays for Portugal, probably could have done a lot better. But I think when you look at the way the Portugal played, they kind of relied a lot on Ronaldo. I think Bruno probably could have done better. He didn't get in the goal or assist for the tournament. But he did create, on the flip side, that he did create the most chances for Portugal in the Euros, but a lot of that came actually in the last two games, like when he came off the bench. Could have done better. I think Bruno could have done better. The reason why I always saying that, because the expectation that he has, the bar he's after setting for himself in the last year and a half that he's after playing for United, I think the bar and the expectation he's after setting for himself in that time frame, that's why you probably say he's had the worst out of the United players at the Euros. Look, the best, I said it at the start of the show, Paul Pogba has definitely been United's best player in the Euros by a country mile. He's playing fantastically well more or less every game for France. And look, that goal last night was just absolutely out of this world. To be fair, he scored a couple like that this year for United. Burnley, West Ham, Fulham. They scored three similar goals to what he scored last night. So he has it in his locker. But look, to do it in the European Championships on a big stage, that just highlights, obviously, how good he is as a footballer. And look, again, you sign a defensive midfielder, Paul Pogba cooks in that midfield. I think, again, as I said, when you have Kante beside him, you look at France's record with Pogba and Kante as a midfield partnership. Before last night, France were unbeaten in 30 games with Pogba and Kante as a partnership since 2018. That's ridiculous. That just shows when Kante is that the defensive-minded midfielder recovers space so well and can get the ball and release it to Paul Pogba, you can see what he can do from the offensive aspect. So I think if United get a defensive midfielder who can win the ball back quickly and release it early, we can see the best Paul Pogba at United. But it just depends if we sign a defensive midfielder or even get a centre back who can get the ball, who can maybe step out in the back for him, give it into a Pogba in an advanced position. Also, I'll give a shout out to Victor Lindelof as well. He's actually done very well for Sweden in the Euros. Look, they topped the group with Joe. They're in the same group as Spain. They topped the group. Lindelof's been actually defending very well. I think Joe Lindelof has done quite well at the Euros. Obviously, look, we talk with centre back. I think if we want to progress, Lindelof probably isn't the option to go further. But look, by his own standards, he's had a very good Euros. Daniel James played okay for Wales as well. I think Shaw in the last two games with England, he's been very good. He's been creating chances. But look, you're talking about the best player, United player at Euros. It is Pogba by a country mile and a large stretch. But again, just hope we can keep him. Do whatever we can to keep him. Obviously, don't look. One thing I will say, I didn't touch on at the start. I wouldn't like to see Pogba get 400 bags a week. Could we see a Sanchez ripple effect then in terms of the drop in performances? Because we did see that when Sanchez got like 300 and something grand to 400,000 a week. I just hope in my heart and hearts that wouldn't happen, because again, he's one of these players who, look, we have seen downturn performances in the United shirt in the past. I just hope it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't like to see a drop in motivation if you got £400,000 a week, because we've seen players at United who've got big wages, De Gea, Alexis Sanchez, just to name two, in the most recent times, since they got them contracts, they dipped massively. So I think you have to be sensible. But look, if he gets the quality players around him, doesn't matter how much he's earning. But again, you just always, you'd have them concerns. You definitely would have them concerns. But look, nevertheless, Rach said, which players impressed you most this tournament and which players let you down? Ooh. No, she didn't mean that in a Man United perspective. So I'm going to go outside, obviously, United, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Lacchetti for Italy. Lacchetti, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not butchering his name. I do apologise. I think he's been a very good, impressive player in the Euros. He's been very good in the field, mobile, breaking up play very well, driving forward. Verratti as well. He's been outstanding as well for Italy. Before they went out, Dumfries for Netherlands really impressed me as well. He was someone who was playing very good football. Schick for Czech Republic as well. He was another player who I thought looked decent. And again, Luka Modric just turned back the clock, 36 years of age. Scored a brilliant goal against Scotland. And yeah, like, there are a couple of players who have impressed. And obviously, look, Ronaldo, still 36 scoring goals. Look, neither I say more. He's just a freak of nature. He defies time. The players let me down the most. Like, for me, I wouldn't say... I think I was going to say Keane, but I think Kane's been the victim of England's system. In terms of, like, look, they're playing two defensive midfielders. Jack Grealish isn't starting. Players like that who can, like, who can help create chances for him. I think he's been a victim of the system, not even just himself. You've seen how deep sometimes he has to drop for the ball. Bruno, probably, look, I'm just talking in terms of expectation that he had. He probably could have done more, but again, I think some of that is down to the defensive system they played. They played Danilo and Carvalho holding midfield, not getting the ball into him quick enough. We've seen that him sometimes have that problem with United too. So yeah, probably Bruno. Just off the base, like, the bar he set for himself. I'm not saying it in the way some other people are saying on Twitter, where you see him saying Bruno Fernandes is overrated, that he's not getting enough goals and assists, but then they don't use that argument when he's playing for United and he's after getting like 50 goals and assists for a total year. Two contradictory arguments. So I think, yeah, Bruno probably, just because the bar he set, probably could have done better, but again, he's had to play in 83 games in a calendar year. You're bound to see a dip at some point. Luckily, it's had to happen in a Portugal shirt, not in a Man United shirt. Now he's getting plenty of rest before the end by pre-season. So selfishly, hopefully he comes back and plays to the level that Bruno Fernandes can only play. Sean Maroney, Chelsea fan, has actually, no, that's not the next one. Reese is actually the next one. Reese said, which Manchester United player do you think consistently flies under the radar and deserves more attention and appreciation? Ooh, that's a good one. It's a very good one, actually. Because our big players, obviously, Bruno, Luke Shaw, they get a lot of recognition. Do you know who I'm going to say should get more appreciation is Rashford? And the reason why I'm going to say it is there's a lot of people in the United fan base who gave Rashford a hard time last year. When you consider Rashford got like 20 goals and like, was it 14, 15, 16 odd assists last season, made a massive contribution. And you also look at the fact what he done outside of football as well. I think he deserves a lot more attention and appreciation. I think Rashford is, look, if all of us could be as good of a person as Marcus Rashford, this world would be such a better place. I think you look at it and he's definitely someone who I think sometimes even from United fans, he gets a hard time when he shouldn't. I think he's consistently improving, his numbers improve, his performances improve. I think the reason why I say he deserves more appreciation, the man's been playing through injury with the last nearly year and he's still delivering them level of numbers. Now, after he gets that surgery, you're going to see even a better Marcus Rashford. I think you'll see a Marcus Rashford who consistently develops and evolves, and if he can get his decision making to a level where where the top elite players are, you will see one of the best players in the world, in my opinion. And the fact he's only 23, he's someone who can definitely develop. Just give me one moment, lads. Sorry about that, guys. There's a package just arrived to my house, so just had to take it in there. Yeah, Ray says ding dong in the comments. But yeah, look, I think Marcus Rashford is definitely a player who deserves more recognition, more appreciation. And look at his goal contributions with goals and assists, considering his injuries that he's been carrying. I think he's a player who most definitely deserves more appreciation from the fans. And look, when he gets that surgery and he comes back fully fit and firing, and you have Sancho to add to that, and further developing Mason Greenwood, you can definitely see a massive difference. I had to boot up the stairs, get my keys, lads. 1 second. Next question. Sean Maroney, Chelsea fan, says, if United sign Sancho and a competent defensive midfielder, what would be your minimum expectations going into next season? So if we get a defensive midfielder with Sancho and a centre-back, for me, title challenge has to be the expectation. But we also have to be realistic. If like the likes of City get Keane and Grealish and Chelsea get Haaland, could be a very tough ask to win the league next year. But if we get them, we need to be at least competitive in the league. To be in thereabouts with the top three up until April at least. I think that's reasonable. I think if we get them players and the other teams get theirs, we can definitely be in and around the top three and be competitive and challenge Chelsea and City next year. Because I think Chelsea, if they get Haaland, will be a force. And they get, I think, Saul Niguez is linked with Chelsea as well. They get them too, they're going to be a force. City are always a force, but if they get Kane and Grealish, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Fernandinho signed a 40-year deal, which indicates they're not in for a Fernandinho replacement this summer. They're putting all their eggs in the Kane and Grealish basket. So for me, I think most definitely at least top three, but you have to be competitive for the vast majority of the season. I think that's where my expectations would be at if we did sign them players from our own point of view. But yeah, in terms of league, I think a trophy next season will be an expectation. I think the FA Cup, I think we should be within a shout to win that. We haven't won that in a couple of years. And a good run the Champions League, at least quarterfinals. At least quarterfinals will be my expectation if we sign them players. At least quarterfinals in Champions League, win the FA Cup or League Cup and challenge for the league. That will be my minimum expectation next season. But again, you have to be realistic and you have to be conscious of what teams around you do, because I think, again, you do have the likes of City who would splash out on them players. Then you also have Liverpool there as well. Like, you can't forget Liverpool. If they buy one or two players to add to their arsenal, they could be another force to be reckoned with, and Van Dijk being back as well. So you just have to be realistic. Like, there's fans out there who say, if we don't win the league, he needs to go. Sometimes I agree to a certain degree, but again, you have to be realistic and say, like, what are the other teams around us doing who already have superior squads? Like, Ollie done well to get second place with that current squad we have. When you consider Chelsea spent 250 million last summer, when you consider, Liverpool brought in likes of Thiago and stuff like that in. Now, I know they had terrible issues with their centre-back situation, but when you look at the current squad we have, and Ollie done well to get second place, done very well to get second place. We just need that bit more to push. But again, it's just about backing your team, backing your manager, and being behind it, being behind the process. I think that's what you have to do. Because look, as a fan of a football club, you're a fan of the football club first and foremost, and that's the way I support my team, my football club. I support them first and foremost, and then whatever happens after that happens. Like, that's out of my hands as a fan. So for me, I'll always support the badge, support the shirt first and foremost, and then whatever happens after that, fair enough. But again, it's just, modern football these days, some of these things kind of just falls out your hands, and you just can't control it. Gone are the days where, back in probably the 90s, 80s and 90s, where if fans wanted a manager gone, they're gone within a week. Like, that's not the way football is. And the fact that Ollie's one of our own, you have to back him. It's just, he's probably the only manager post Sir Alex who's actually cared about the football club and didn't put themselves first before the football club. So I think that's where I have the extra impetus to back the manager and back Solskjaer, because he is one of our own, and he has progressed us from second to third in his first two seasons, considering the current state the football club was left from the previous manager. So that's where I'm at in terms of that. Grant Campbell from Campbell's Footballs has asked, which United player will improve most next year? I'll go Greenwood. I expect Mason Greenwood to get... I'm going to give you a show here, guys. I say Greenwood to get at least 15 goals next season. At least 15. You can clip that up. I think the player who will improve most for United next year will be Greenwood. I'd expect at least 15 goals, because obviously he's going to be challenging Cavani for a striker. Cavani can't play 3 games in a week. Greenwood will play games up front next season. I think Greenwood will definitely be the most improved player at United next year. And if you want to go outside of Greenwood, if you want to say maybe another player who may improve next season, I'm actually going to bring up an academy player, because he might go out on loan, and will be Anthony Elanga. I think he could improve next season and maybe get to an extra level too, depending on whether he plays in the squad or whether he goes elsewhere on loan. I think a loan spell would actually benefit Elanga massively. There are 2 players I believe you should watch out for in terms of like young talent at the football club. Because you could easily say Bruno or Pogba or someone like that to improve when they're established players. So that's why I kind of wanted to say 2 younger players in terms of Greenwood and Elanga. Final question, and I like this one. Victoria's Secrets asked, which would you keep any of the returning loanees or let them go on loan next season? Also, which of the fringe players / young players do you see breaking into the first team and matchday squads? Dylan, that's a very good question. I'm going to get to that one as well in a moment. Dylan, if you're free, I'll actually send you a StreamYard link as well. Let me know. The loanees. The only one of the loanees I'd probably keep, Eaton Laird. I think paying 43 million for Kieran Trippier is madness. If we done that, I think that would be absolutely bizarre to do, especially when he's on the wrong side of 30. I think Laird done very well at his spell at MK Dons on loan. And look, I've watched him in the younger age groups. He is a good player. He can definitely develop. And if Aaron Wan-Bissaka did happen to pick up an injury, I would have confidence in Laird that he's one of our own, that he could come in and do a good job. And that's definitely a loan player I'd keep. In terms of leaving players go out on loan, I think there was talk. I seen reports. Hannibal going on loan to Galatasaray. I wouldn't mind seeing Hannibal maybe getting a loan spell, maybe in the Championship. To be honest, I know overseas will be good, but I think maybe let him go out on loan and let's see if he can progress and play well. Because I think the last thing you'd want to do with Hannibal is probably expose him in the Premier League early. I think there's a lot of talent there. I think it just needs to be nurtured. And I think first team football, maybe in the Championship or something like that, getting used to the physicality, proper physicality of the English game. I think maybe a loan spell to the Championship to a team like Bournemouth or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I think that could be a good move for him, especially under Scott Parker. I think Scott Parker would be a good manager for Hannibal to maybe learn his trade off for a year. In terms of players letting him go out and loan as well next season, in terms of that question, I think Garner. I'd like to see Garner maybe get another loan spell. I'd even go as far as say maybe someone like Brighton or something, like let Garner go out to Graham Potter, who is a very good, exceptional coach. I think Garner played very well for Nottingham Forest in the Championship last season. I think maybe to step up to Manchester United defence midfield probably isn't the right time for him, to be honest. Maybe let him go out on loan. I think, look, when you talk about returning loanees, I'd say sell Jesse Lingard. Sell Lingard. I think, look, kind of in his prime of his career last couple of years, he probably doesn't want to be sitting on Man United's bench behind Rashford and Bruno. So I would say leave Lingard go, free up them wages he has and pump it back into the first team. In terms of fringe or kind of young players breaking into the matchday squad, I think we may see Diallo get a couple of more games next year, especially with a congested fixture list. And as I said, Eaton Laird. I think Laird could definitely be a player that we can utilise in first team and matchday squads going forward, especially early stages of cup competitions. I think definitely Laird could be a player who could be useful. That's if we don't sign Trippier, of course, which, look, again, 43 million for a 30-year-old Kieran Trippier, or 30 or 31, whatever age he is, I think is a bit steep. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and Dylan Donnelly from United All Day has commented, said, what are your thoughts on the goalkeeping circus? Tom Heaton signed a 2-year contract on 75k a week. The club are nearly pissing away nearly £1 million a week on goalkeepers. Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because you kind of wonder what's happening there, because you've David De Gea on 375, you've Henderson on 120, now you've Heaton on 75k, and they're on about giving Lee Grant a new contract. Kind of make you wonder what's going on upstairs in terms of the new director of football, in terms of Woodward, in terms of all that. For me, 2-year contract on 75k a week for a third choice keeper. Let's say De Gea or Henderson don't move on. It's not right, is it? It's not right. I think, again, that comes down to recruitment and lack of kind of football and nous upstairs. Now, I know Tom Heaton's on a free and he's an experienced goalkeeper in his own right, but I think, look, if he's third choice keeper on 75k a week, I think that's a bit steep. It's a bit steep, and it's something you wouldn't like to think that United don't have a plan. Because that's, for me, if you're giving Heaton them wages, that surely there's an expectation that either one of Henderson or De Gea is leaving. I think, Dylan's right, you're nearly hemorrhaging nearly £1 million a week on 3 goalkeepers alone, where you eliminate some of that and you can actually pump that into your first team and get better players and pay their wages. So I'm in agreement that it is a circus at the moment. And look, we're into 29th of June. Hopefully, maybe I'm just being overly positive, but hopefully we can sort out the goalkeeping position in terms of who's the number one. And whoever that number two, whether it's Henderson or De Gea, that they move on. That United have a plan to move them on. But again, like, look, if we have them 3 goalkeepers at the club next season, hemorrhaging £1 million a week, nearly £1 million a week on 3 goalkeepers, it shows lack of planning at board level, and it shows everything what's been wrong in terms of our recruitment structure in the last donkey's years, nearly, like in terms of how long it is. Reece says his physical appearance now shows he's committed. That's in reference to Elanga. Reece also proceeds to say, Laird and Devine, I hope to see them in the first team in a few years. Fish, Elanga, Galbraith or Garner. There are a few others too we already mentioned, and rightfully so, and Joe Hugel too. That's interesting because Joe Hugel is getting a new 3-year contract with Man United as well, and he's going to be getting some first team appearances in pre-season. So maybe that's a striker for the future. Though he done well coming from Sunderland to Man United, scored a fair few goals for the 23s last year. So yeah, look, it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens with Joe Hugel, especially, and can he progress and get that bit better, and maybe next year and a half, 2 years, maybe be ready for first team. We just don't know. But I think, look, when we talk about first team strikers and future first team strikers, look, I strongly believe we've wanted Mason Greenwood for the next 10 years. I really do. We just have to make sure that we look after him in the right way and we give him enough game time to develop. Amy's also here. I'm guessing you're probably on your lunch break. She says afternoon. And then Katie says hi also to Amy. But yeah, look, that's more or less everything I wanted to cover today on the show in terms of our transfer business, in terms of what I think about Sancho and the whole Mourinho Shaw situation and Pogba. But just the final thing I'll just bring up is obviously, look, England-Germany's on in 2 hours at 5 o'clock. Look, selfish part of me wants England to go out. Not even going to lie. I think I selfishly want Rashford to go off, get surgery. I want Maguire to get rest. I want Shaw to get rest. I want Sancho to be done as soon as possible. But look, I hope, just like last night, that England-Germany is a good game of football than what the Spain game was yesterday. And what the France game was last night. Both outstanding games, and look, at the tournament really was lit up last night, the Euros. So hopefully we can see that today with England-Germany too. In terms of prediction for the game, because I've already done a bet builder on Paddy Power, so I'm actually going to stick by that. I'll just let it known here. I'm going to go England-Germany to draw 1-1 in normal time, and I'm going to go Germany to win on penalties. I think Germany could do it again on penalties against England at Wembley. Sorry to all my English counterparts in the comments. I think Germany will do them on penalties today. Look, that benefits Man United because all our English players come home and get a rest, and Sancho comes to United earlier. I just see Reese's comment here. I'm just going to bring it up. Reese says, we full well know you want England to go through for one reason, you evil man. Yeah, so actually I'm going to bring this up, guys, here. We had 3 Devils in the Gooner there 2 weeks ago, or 2 or 3 weeks ago, correct me. And Reese made a bet with Rach that if England gets to the semi-finals, Reese has to come on live on air, being a Scotsman, wearing an English jersey with Bukayo Saka on the back of it. So if that happens, we're going to see Reese live on air with an England jersey on. So, look, again, I'd rather see probably United players come home early, but again, at the same time, I'd be remiss if I said that it would be nice to see Reese wear an England jersey and have to swallow his pride. But yeah, look, that's all for me today. We will be back later on in the week with the Talk of the League podcast, and Greg will be back later on this week in terms of talking about all things Premier League. He will have a couple of guests on that show. look, in terms of me, what's coming up here on this side, obviously the Academy podcast will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Myself and Shane, that'll be a pre-recorded podcast. Won't be a live show. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, but it also is going to be uploaded to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the kind of the audio podcast platforms. There is a rebranding to this YouTube channel coming soon too. Because again, as I said previously in the past, we're not a fan channel. We don't do fan cams or any of that stuff. We're a fully sports podcast, so we're going to be covering a lot of sports coming up now in the next kind of couple of weeks. There's going to be a basketball podcast that's going to be covering all things NBA and all things national basketball in America and Canada coming up. That's going to be hosted by Tim, and that's called the Dimes and Buckets podcast. That's going to be coming up soon. There's also the London Lowdown also has a new host. Reese is going to be hosting the London Lowdown going forward. Also, there's going to be a WWE podcast coming soon too. And also, I just got news today too. Obviously, the MMA podcast. Usually, myself and Jamie do host that. I don't know if Jamie's going to be here next week, but obviously, in the lead up to the Conor McGregor fight, I do have a special guest coming on next week. I've Irish fighter and recent sparring partner of Conor McGregor, John Mitchell, coming on the podcast next week to talk about his experiences sparring McGregor, but also talking about the upcoming UFC 264 card. So that should be good as well. And we also will be collaborating with MMA YouTube channel Against the Fence. And also, look, I've other projects coming up outside of this. We're talking all things Manchester United. I'm going to be working with Talk of the Devils. I will be working with a former Manchester United player every Friday. And so do keep an eye out on social media for that one. We will have an announcement out soon enough in terms of what time and what date that's going to be happening. But yeah, look, I really enjoyed coming on the show today. Got me through my afternoon. Thanks to everyone in the comments. You've all been smashing today. And then look, hope everyone enjoys the football here today. And look, I hope everyone has a good week and it all flies and we can all have a good weekend. But look, thanks very much everyone for watching and contributing today. And look, we will be back later on the week with the Talk of the League podcast. Until then, thanks very much everyone.